Whether you find yourself in year one of homeschooling or you are a few years into it, there are things that we encounter the hard way as homeschool moms. Today's goal for this episode is to equip you when, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when you stare these 5 things that no one told you about homeschooling straight down, and you have to decide, what are you going to do about it? Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at the kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Let's just jump straight into it, into those 5 things. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because you know what? My life has been a little bit crazy lately with the conference coming up in, next weekend. There's just so much to do, so many details and stuff. And so there is just a lot that I'm juggling right now. But I did not want to miss out on recording any episodes because I'm committed to it. I'm committed to giving you an episode twice a week. So let's talk about 5 things that no one tells you about the homeschooling. Number 1, this is kind of a sad one. I don't mean for this. I feel like a bunch of these are just kind of like a little bit sad, and I'm not trying to be sad. This is reality. Like, let's just actually talk about the reality of homeschooling in today's culture. And the first one is that you might lose some friends over the fact that you're homeschooling. Maybe you have kids in public school, private school, and you take them out. And the friends that you have made there are taken offense to that. And you just kind of, whether just suddenly cut out or just slowly, you aren't included in the text thread, you're not invited to things. And it's just a reality that sometimes it does happen, unfortunately. Or maybe you have young children and you decide to make that shift and you just decide not to send your kids to school at all, and you decide to homeschool, and the friends that you have, and these could be church friends. Listen, I know that's hard. That makes it harder. And it just sometimes happens that friends are just going to just kind of start to cut you out. But it doesn't always have to be so harsh. It could just be that just the dynamics change with those friends, and it could be a temporary dynamics change. I noticed this in my own life, just the dynamics, just things kind of change with the friendships for about a year or so. And then it comes with any type of hard situation. When you and a friend have made opposite choices or decisions about something and their feelings are maybe hurt, or again, they just take it as an offense. Like, well, is this school not good enough for you and your kids? But it's okay for me and my kids. And it's something that they have to work through. My recommendation for this is for you just to continue to be a godly friend. If someone does not respond to your text messages, you reaching out and stuff, you can't do anything about that. So we're just going to let them be. And if it's like a dynamics change, you just continue to be you. You continue just to be yourself and your family to be yourself. And hopefully then that friendship will come back to you. However, on the flip side, when you decide to homeschool, you will gain new friends, people that you would never have met because you didn't homeschool. These could be people from a different town. They could be that you get together for a co-op or you're introduced through somebody else, people that you would never cross paths with, possibly, just because that's just where you live and just the way life is. And you become good friends. You might find that you have such good friends in the homeschooling community, and it can be a huge blessing. And I find that homeschool friends is just, I can get together with other homeschool moms, and it doesn't matter whether you are older than me, younger than me, your kids are whatever age, the way that you homeschool, it does not matter. We have that common bond. The second thing I want to hit on here kind of builds a little bit off of number 1. And that is the fact. I just kind of wanted to dig in and drill down on this one a little bit more, just this part of it, is that not everyone will understand what you are doing by homeschooling or even be on your side. So again, what is your role? What part do you play in it? How are you to be? I want to remind you of Romans 12:18. And it says, this is the English Standard Version, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. So what that means is that you live peaceably. You don't bring up any drama. You don't start anything that's going to cause any issues. And sometimes this can be something simply like some friends that you feel like are feeling judged and you're just not quite sure about the relationship and you want to maintain the relationship. It might just mean that you don't repost those memes or reels on social media that are negative about the school system that those friends will see. Because if you do such a thing, even if you feel like that, you feel like, oh yeah, I totally agree with this post or this reel or this meme, it's going to hurt their feelings and maybe it's not worth it. And so it is up to you to say, how do I live peaceably with others? I can only do my part and let's just see where it goes. And I personally kind of think like on the other side, I mean, I could post a lot of things and I really have to hold back from not, because I know that there's people who think differently than I am. And it's not something that I want to cause such an issue in our friendship over. But ultimately, when others don't understand or they're not on your side when it comes to homeschool, your ultimate duty after Christ is to your husband and then to your children. So you are doing what you feel like God has called you to do. You are seeking a personal relationship with Jesus. You are pouring into your marriage. Your husband and you are doing well. And then it's your kids. And this is what you're doing. You're homeschooling and you feel called to do this. And so that is ultimately your duty there, not to make sure that your friends aren't offended at all. It's their choice to be offended, and it's their choice on what they're going to do with that feeling of being offended. But if the best thing for your family is homeschooling, then you do it. And you don't worry about the fact that others do not understand you or are not on your side, whether that's family or whether that's friends or complete strangers. Number 3, and the things that nobody tells you when you first start homeschooling, is that there is no one solution to homeschooling. And guess what? It is ever evolving. So what do I mean? What I mean is that there is not one perfect style of homeschooling. There is not one perfect curriculum. There is not one family that is doing the only right way to homeschool. It is something that is a personal decision when it's looking at each of your children, your family as a whole. What is your vision? What are your goals? And what is your why? What are you hoping to accomplish by homeschooling? So there is not one solution. And the second part of there is that it is ever evolving. What I mean is what you are doing this homeschool year, it might work next year or it might not, or you might have to tweak and change things just slightly. Or maybe year 2 of homeschooling and you compare that to year 8 and they looked vastly different. That doesn't mean that year 2 was wrong. Doesn't mean that year 8 is more right or that it was wrong. It is just what is going to be best for your family in that homeschool year. And it's really important for us to recognize that. And I think the struggle that we have and why we have it is because most of us have the picture of the school system in our mind. And we might have teacher friends, or maybe you were a teacher and say you taught 3rd grade for 10 years. I know they move teachers around a lot, but let's just say 3rd grade for 10 years. Pretty much, you're going to do the same thing every single year. I mean, maybe the standards, things will change, but let's just say that there is nothing that necessarily changes. And you could teach the same thing for 10 years because the kids are all going to be about the same age. Well, they are going to be the same age. It's going to be different kids every year, but they're going to be the same age. And you can take that same approach for, say, 9 and 10-year-olds year after year after year after year. But you're not going to have 9 and 10-year-olds for 10 years straight. I mean, unless your kids are like boom, boom, boom. You have a lot of kids and they're right after each other. Most likely you won't, but still the dynamics will change, and every single year can be very different or just slightly different. And so it is an ever evolving thing. The style and way you start homeschooling might not be how you end homeschooling, and you might be very free and fluid with your homeschool and you get towards high school and you find that you have a child that maybe wants to go into the medical field or be a lawyer or an engineer, they're just very focused and they really want to do a lot of academic work. They want to take college courses. And you're like, this is not what I imagined when we started. Well, our job is to teach the child in front of us, not to what we want it to look like. Number 4, and I definitely have learned this one. Well, I've learned all of them. But this one is just that your life will be drastically different than if you were not homeschooling. But only if you choose to let it be a good thing. I mean, it can be drastically different in a terrible way. And you get to choose. Is it going to be drastically different in a terrible way? Or is it going to be drastically different in a good way? In my state of New York, in 2019, they removed the religious exemptions for, I don't know if I can say the word or not, but the little needle thing that they put in your arm. I don't want to say it and get flagged or something like that. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter where you fall on any of this, okay? What I want to point out is that at that point, students, thousands of students in the state of New York were no longer allowed to attend public school. And a lot of families decided to homeschool then that year. Ironically, that was the 2019 to 2020 homeschool school year. And then we know what all happened in 2020. But a lot of those, because I was in Facebook groups and was just kind of watching people's reaction, and a lot of them were very bitter and were very upset. A lot of them have been fighting ever since to get their kids back into school. And so I know that's an extreme example, but I do know of just others that I have, and I'm not going to point any fingers or point out anybody or any particular groups or cultural groups, but for their own maybe religious reasons or their own personal reasons as a whole, they decided to homeschool, but they just do basically recreating the school at home as opposed to just really embracing and saying, yes, my life and our family's life is going to look drastically different. My family's life has looked so different, and I thank and praise God for that. I know that my kids are who they are because of the years of homeschooling. And when I say homeschooling, I don't mean just the academics. I mean overall. My life is very different. I have no idea what I would have done when my kids started going to school. Would I have gone back to work? I don't know. It would just be so different. It was a change in our life that felt like kind of a big deal. But I look back and I'm like, wow, that was actually a really big deal. I mean, nothing surprises God. It was a part of what he wanted for our family, so it doesn't surprise him. But you think, especially when you put your kids into public school or private school and you have like this path in front of you that you think you're going to be on, and then you decide to homeschool, you're like, oh, wow, no, we're jumping over to this path, and it's very different, and it can be a really good thing. And I just want to emphasize that it can be drastically different in a good or negative way, and you get to choose which way that is. And number 5, I don't mean to make this sound negative. I'm just kind of like, let's have a reality check here, okay? Number 5, reality check. Homeschooling is hard. It's like really hard, right? Doesn't mean it's not easy at times, but just overall, it's hard. It's an easy decision, but it's not easy always to continue with it. You could have some easy years. You could have some kids that are absolutely easy to homeschool. I had one that was fairly easy, and then I had 2 that were not so easy. And so it's not always hard, is what I want to say. It's not always a negative, but let's be realistic here and admit to one another that homeschool and motherhood, even if you aren't homeschooling, motherhood is hard. There's a lot of hard in it. But like my friend Abby Halberstadt at M is for Mama says, hard is not equal to bad. It's not the same thing. So I did do an episode with her. You should listen to that one. And she has her own podcast. I recommend going and listening to that, and books and all kinds of things. So she's great. But just because it's hard, it doesn't mean that you should quit. It will take a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of mental and emotional energy in order to problem solve and to figure out what direction to go, because there is no manual that comes with kids. If you listen to the episode about raising kids that are not just a nominal Christian, I don't have a formula for you. So there's a lot of problem solving, a lot of looking at each individual child and how can we reach their hearts right now, this year, and all of that. But hard does not mean that it is impossible. Therefore, just because it gets hard, and it will get hard, I notice a lot of parents that if you can get through years 3 to 5 of homeschool, you will continue on. I did do an episode about quitting, and I talked about this thing that just kind of seems to happen. The first year is like, okay, you're high on life. Second year, like, okay, this is getting a little bit hard. Third year, like, I don't think I'm cut out for this. And that happens for years 3, 4, 5, and something switches, something changes around year 5. When you say, okay, I'm 5 years in, like, why would I quit now? I just have to work a little bit harder at this. I have to problem solve. We have to figure things out a little bit more. So if you especially are finding yourself in years 3 to 5, stay with it. Hard does not mean that it is impossible. So those are my 5 things that nobody tells you when you get into homeschooling. And hopefully just like a good reality check, and also knowing that you're seen. And a lot of homeschool moms feel like you do. And I have, and I will, and I do feel like this at times as well. If you're struggling with your homeschool, I want to encourage you to go check out your homeschool blueprint, where we're going to put that foundation that you need, the one that's going to help you not to get burned out, the one that's going to help and equip you to be able to problem solve and figure out what is best for my family for this year. You can find out more details at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/blueprint. And the link is also in the show notes. Friend, you can do this. You've been called to a wonderful, wonderful, worthy use of your time. And I promise you, in the end, it is 100% worth it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.